¿Qué tal? Bueno, gracias por estar y pienso que Liv quiere empezar esta conversación leyendo la introducción de su último libro, que aquí se titula No siento nada.
No siento nada. Cuando Leonardo DiCaprio y Bar Raffaele, la modelo de trajes de baño israelí de la revista Sports Illustrated, lo dejaron en 2011, una fuente le dijo al Daily Mail: ha sido una ruptura amistosa. Siguen siendo amigos y siguen en contacto. Lo que pasó es que se habían distanciado y habían evolucionado en distintas direcciones. Luego, Leonardo DiCaprio empezó a salir con la actriz Blake Lively, de 24 años. Luego dejaron y Leo empezó a salir con la modelo de Victoria's Secret, Erin Heatherton, de 23 años. Luego rompieron y Leo empezó a salir con la modelo alemana de Victoria's Secret, Toni Garn, de 22 años. Luego dejaron y Leo empezó a salir con la modelo de traje de baño de la revista Sports Illustrated, Kelly Rohrbach, de 25 años. Luego rompieron y Leo empezó a salir con una modelo de bikinis polaca, Ella Kawalec, de 23 años. Luego lo dejaron y Leo empezó a salir con la modelo danesa de trajes de baño de la revista Sports Illustrated, Nina Agdal, de 25 años. Al final también lo dejaron. Una fuente le dijo al Daily Mail: ambos pensaron que separarse era lo mejor. Siguen siendo amigos y se llevan muy bien. No siento nada. O sí, seguramente sienta algo, solo que no tan fuerte. No es como si Leonardo DiCaprio siente que se va a morir si, por ejemplo, Toni Garn no atraviesa Nueva York en bici a su lado. Al final, tampoco es como si le importase mogollón no volver a ver nunca más a Erin Heatherton. Y a Erin tampoco le debe de importar mucho no volver a ver a Leonardo DiCaprio. Leonardo DiCaprio es como una placa de cocina tibia que nunca acaba de hacer hervir el agua. Uno puede poner la mano encima de la placa sin quemarse. Y no pasa absolutamente nada, no tiene nada de malo, solo que, pues, no siente demasiado, no siente nada.
So, hi, Liv.
Hi.
So good to have you here. No siento nada is the title that your book has in Spain and also in English, in the English Anglo-Saxon world, but it's not the original title of your book in Swedish. So what was the title?
The title in Swedish was The Reddest Rose Unfolds, which comes from a poem by Hilda Doolittle that is in the book.
Well, the people that have already read the book will know why it was titled like that, but I would love you to explain why Hilda Doolittle is one of the spirits that overflows the book, because I have kind of a potential equivalent that could match the Leonardo DiCaprio example, and I want to see if it works. But first, what's with Hilda Doolittle?
Well, it's just that, like, when I write comics, I stumble across some anecdote or some destiny of life or some, like when I read something else, and like a few years ago I just stumbled upon this anecdote or this story about an American poet named Hilda Doolittle that had like an occult experience on a boat where she fell in love with a man, and started to see dolphins, but there were no dolphins, and she thought that she had been transferred to another dimension, and so on. And I'm like, this is the most, this story is so funny, and I like her so much, and I have to like retell this story sometimes. So, and then when I was working with this book, I felt it was a very good like counter story to how we view on love today as like some kind of scientific subject that can be explained by neurobiology in the brain or for evolutionary reasons or something like that. That is very that kind of deprives love of its mystery and also of its meaning, and makes it kind of empty and hard to believe in. So yeah.
So Hilda, in this case, like, is the opposite of the way we understand how loving well is today, no? Which is basically like a transaction between equals that is fair and reasonable, and where one of the equals becomes an equal because loves more or less than the other, then the transaction is over. And then your argument, and you argue with the help of a number, especially a couple of sociologists and thinkers from the very contemporary, love studies, I guess. You find that this is something that somehow rejects love as this alchemy that transforms people, and in the case of Hilda, even the world, no? It makes dolphins appear where they are not, and things like that. And I was thinking how, if Leonardo DiCaprio is like the perfect player in this transactional universe of the, I don't know, the unlove, I guess, how maybe Britney Spears would be the opposite character, because she is a woman broken by love, no? A woman broken by attention and fandom, and basically, represents the kind of mad woman that used to be, I don't know, locked in the attic or taken to an institution. And in this case, as we have been following in the last few months, she was turned into a captive by his own father, and etc. And now we're living like through her liberation. So I wonder if she could be maybe a character in your next book.
Yeah, I actually made a comic about Britney Spears in 2008, where she just, when she had just met Kevin Federline, and she had this mental breakdown where she shaved off her hair, and so I made a comic about her, but I don't think it's published yet in Spain, but now it's outdated, but it's also actually about love and about when she fell in love with Kevin Federline, my fantasy of that, and the content of her songs, and yeah, it's very interesting, her case, yeah.
It was the year of Toxic, no?
Yeah.
Which, wasn't it written by a Swedish songwriter, actually?
I'm sure.
What's with the Swedish and Norwegian songwriters? Yes. Because one of the other characters in your book is Beyoncé, of course, which would be, in a way, like, the female Leonardo DiCaprio. And you go through the history of what falling in love is, and how love was something that Aphrodite and Eros, meaning a god or a goddess from above, would literally like dump on you, and you would be this fallen creature. But now, people that are able to endure love without suffering, which is a bit like 18 donuts without getting fat, they are the new gods, no? And that's why Beyoncé is a goddess, while poor Britney is something different.
Yeah. Well, I think it has to do with I think that like one of the main features of our time today is like the optimization of the self, or like sorry, my English is not so good. Like the heightened focus on the self, and this has got like and that everything that the self can like optimize everything, control everything, set up goals and achieve those goals, and and there's a lot of things in this that are positive, but there is also like a clash, I think, when it comes to certain things that you absolutely cannot control, like in our culture, that it's kind of becomes, I think, more and more difficult to deal with or know how to deal with. Like death is another example that cannot really that we cannot really cope with in this culture, because everything is about like optimizing the self, like empowering the self, controlling everything, optimizing your life, optimize your body, optimize your face, optimize your relationships, like your work, like everything, and everything is just going to be better and better and better, like very much equal to economic growth. But then you have these uncontrollable things that occur that are like very much out of our control. And like I said, death is one example, but another example is falling in love, where you cannot decide, today I want to fall madly in love with someone, and you just fall in love with someone, and then if that person doesn't love you back, you would really want to tell yourself, like, I want this feeling to stop, so I would feel better. It would be better for everyone if I could just stop this feeling. But you can't. It's something that is operating on some different level. Also, like, you're in a relationship and you want to be in that relationship, but you have fallen out of love with that person, and you try, like, how can I don't want to hurt this person, I want to stay here, and you try to find within yourself different ways of making yourself continue to be in love with this person, but that's also something that is kind of out of your control. And and I think that the explications, or the way we explain, like, what is a human, and like how our culture deals with different feelings today is very poor, because it's difficult to have like a narrative around these things when everything is just about like self-empowerment and control and so on. Because, for example, suffering is something that is not welcome in this type of world, So just intense suffering is like, if you're going to suffer, then you have to like learn something from it very quickly and come out on the other side. Just like plain suffering is not something that is almost allowed, and it's very difficult to have like love or any human relationship without suffering, because suffering is like an inherent part of it. Like, if you have a kid, you will suffer, because like, if that kid is unhappy, you're going to be unhappy. If you're in love, if that person leaves, you're going to be sad. That's like a part of loving someone. The only way to avoid suffering is to not feel anything for anyone. So if you are very afraid of suffering, or if the culture has like banned suffering, then I think that we also ban love,
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because suffering is actually a very important part of our everyday life. But it is only appropriate when it's productive, no? Like, you can suffer in the gym, so you can get really good ass, and you can suffering at work, so you could get a promotion, and you can suffer, I don't know, but you cannot suffer for love, because that somehow is unproductive, because of course, the transformation of the soul into a higher being, which is, what the suffering of love is all about, is just not not very becoming these days, no? Hence the Britney example. I was actually, when I was reading your book, I was thinking about how I have a favorite love song, and it's I Don't Want to Get Over You by the Magnetic Fields. And all the song is about precisely how, you know, he doesn't want to do all the things that you do to just get rid of the suffering, which is like, you know, date someone else, someone not too bright but sweet and nice, he says, no? Or even, like, you know, turn it into aesthetics, like, you know, what does he say? Or I can make a career of being blue and smoke clove cigarettes and drink vermouth, you know, like just turn it into art or something else. And he says he don't want to get over that because he doesn't want to get over love, which is what all of this is about. And I really like how you almost turn the book into its head when you talk about how the one that doesn't love is also a victim. Like, it's not only the suffering one that cannot get, you know, the loved one to bring attention or to, I don't know, want to have children or whatever, but how the unloving person is just a bit, or even the one that just stops loving someone, that has what I call the thought that kills all thoughts one day. It's like waking up from a dream, no? Where you're like, no, I want to go back into the dream. It's just like, keep dreaming it, and then you close your eyes and you just can't get there, and then the loved one becomes toxic to you. And the way you go through the different contemporary approaches to it, no? Which is all about either chemicals in the brain that want you to go and breed children somewhere else, or the sociology approach, which has a lot to do with this idea of us approaching love in a very narcissistic way, which is not entirely a case of being self-focused as much as being self-protective, no? Because when you say that one of the reasons why we don't love anymore, like we don't throw ourselves, we don't fall in love into other people and you know, and their suffering for their love, is because we are so rejectful of suffering, not only because it's uncool, because it is shameful. And before we were talking about how I see all your production, all your books being about shame, because, you know, we will talk about your, I think, second to previous book to this one, because No Sienta Nada is Liv's seventh book. Like, we only have two in Spanish, but this is her seventh book. And El Fruto Prohibido is her fifth book, no?
Yeah.
And how all these books that you've been producing are like different approaches to how we feel shame about who we are and the natural things that we do, like falling in love and suffering from it. So I think they're all about the shame of being human, no? In a world that aspires to be inhuman, that rejects nature, that rejects not only being animal, which is something we've been doing for a few thousand years now, but that rejects just being human. We just want to maybe load our brain into a machine that will never die or get sick, or, you know, or be, I don't know, whingy, and just live forever and be perfect and have a perfect body and a perfect life.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought, that the books are about shame. I was working, like the word shame was actually one of the words that I was first starting to think about when I made El Fruto Prohibido, because I was reading somewhere, I don't know if it's the same in Spanish, but in Swedish the words for shame and guilt are quite alike. And there was some psychologist who said that the difference between feeling shame and feeling guilt is that guilt is something you feel for something you did, but shame is like when you just feel shame of who you are.
What you are.
Yeah, what you are. Yeah. So And that's when I wrote about menstruation, for example, which I think is that type of example when you can just be like mortified by something that is, you know, just some very natural process in your body, but it's like, it's really shameful to have that process. And yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, actually, like you start the book in a way that is both like tragic and hilarious because, I mean, of course, like El Fruto Prohibido is all about the female genitalia. You call it vulva. This is your favorite term for it, which is pretty sweet term, I think. But instead of talking about how it's a taboo topic and how women, you know, are not allowed to have vulvas because, you know, that's too shameful, you actually start by talking about how there's been people in history that have been focusing a bit too much on the female genitalia, and they were not women, actually. So can you tell us about the series of over enthusiastic
men who has been too interested in the female sexual organ. Yeah, but it's well, it was just like when I got the idea to write a book about this subject, it struck me that every time anyone talks about this subject, they talk about it basically in the same way, and they always talk about it like the vulva is something invisible and it's something that we didn't get enough knowledge about and we have to name it and we have to talk about it and so on. I'm like, but I don't want to start like everyone starts to talk about this subject. And I had read the History of Sexuality by Foucault, where he does this argument that there is too much, like the will to know is like the most oppressive power when it comes to sexuality, that like all the collecting data and like making surveys and having like different investigations about different things is also a way to like control the sexuality of people and try and categorize them. You are this kind, you are this kind, and you have this kind of fetish, or you are perverted in this kind of way, and just like make notes about everything and so on, instead of just like letting sexuality be something that is outside of this, like the will to know, according to him, is like a way to use power. So, and then it was, or to oppress people through knowledge. That's also why it's called, in English, it's called the fruit of knowledge, because it's like how knowledge can be used as oppression, of course, and how knowledge can be used as liberation. So it's like, it's two ways, but then I was just one day was like, okay, I'm gonna start the book by saying that the biggest problem is that people have been too interested in the vulva, you know, and that's also true. Like when you start thinking about it, like the worst era for the female genital was like about 150 years ago, when like the medical science started to want to really investigate and experiment on female genitals, and also made all of these like horrible operations, and the clitoridectomy, which removed the clitoris and removed the for various reasons, like mental problems or whatever, and so it would have been better if they just was not so interested in it.
Or less into the vulva, a little bit more into chess, for instance.
Yes.
Like going to chess. Like one of the things that I found really shocking was how Kellogg's, the man that gave us cornflakes,
yes,
was also particularly focused on stopping women from touching themselves, and had like theories about how pouring acid over women's genitalia, yes, was an excellent way to stop us from sin.
Yeah.
I guess we're not eating Kellogg's anymore, ever. At least I am not. And one of the other things that I found really, again, hilarious and kind of bizarre and scary was this idea that, of course, like all this cartographing of the female genitalia and putting names on it, like this colonial sort of approach that then starts with, putting names and then keeps going with like extraction of parts, of body parts and moving things around. It takes us to this era where witches were defined by the existence of certain body parts that, of course, all women have, and how sometimes entire villages were found full of witches just because, men were so like focused on looking at women's vaginas and finding them, I don't know, missing or maybe having too many body parts.
They thought that there was this little mark that could be inside of the vulva that is explained like a small wart or something like that. And there was one priest that had examined the vagina of a presumed witch, and he just ran out screaming that he found a weird little wart. And then they thought that this was the sign that someone was a witch. So they started to investigate to look for this strange wart. I don't know what they what they were looking for, but it's one of the weird this weird history.
The vagina expert.
Yes.
Vagina specialist. Well, and then you go on to one of the topics that I find the most fascinating in your book, which is about menstruation. And one of the reasons why I find it so interesting is because you or maybe someone chose one of your drawings to be put on the underground, on the metro in Stockholm as an exhibition for a whole year, true?
Yeah.
And I think it was the most polemic piece of art that this program had, like in its entire history.
Yeah.
That you were, you had your painting vandalized and protested and all sorts of things in a way that maybe if you had the good taste of having someone shooting someone in the face or something like that, you wouldn't have to to suffer through, no? Why do you think that was? Because we think, like we Spaniards, we think about Sweden as a very feminist and somehow, contemporary and modern kind of country. So what's about menstruation that is so intolerable?
Yeah, well, this exhibition, if I can explain, it was like an exhibition in the subway in Stockholm where they were about this size, like very big, and they asked, they have like a changing agenda with different artists that change. So for 1 year they have one artist and they change, and they asked me to do it, and they said, like, we don't have a very big budget, so you have to use art that you have already done. But as I make comics, I don't do so many big things. I'm like, but what the only like big pictures that I've made the last years are from this book, because that book had just come out then in Sweden. I'm like, okay, but do they want me to display these menstruating women? I tried to send it in to them because they had to say yes or no, and they had given us directions like, you cannot have anything that is offensive, you cannot have anything that is political, you cannot have anything that can offend any religious group or any political group or anything. But I'm like, but menstruation really isn't like a political subject, or it shouldn't really, offend anyone, because it's just like, or like, who says that this is a political subject? I mean, so I just sent them in, and then for some weird reason they just said, okay, let's put them up. And I was kind of surprised, because I felt like, but maybe there was like some person in the jury that was just like, but we can't find an argument that is good enough to say no,
The reason.
Yeah, so maybe that was the reason. And so I don't know if you know these pictures, but they are from this book, and they show a woman ice skating with like a menstrual blood in her crotch like this. So
It's based on a real ice skater.
yes, it's based on a real photograph that I saw of a real ice skater that had a menstrual stain while performing in a competition, and I felt that like that image was very interesting to me. I think it's an interesting image because it's a discussion about like what is a woman and like what is. I think that like what does a menstrual stain signal to us? Like I feel sorry for this woman. She's mad. She lost it. She needs help. She's insane, or she's really or you know. But also in the sport of ice skating, they have a lot of very like feminine, like they construct themselves in a very feminine way with a lot of like makeup and ballerina style clothes and so on. And then if they put so much effort into having all these like feminine traits, you would think that maybe a menstrual stain would be like the icing on the cake if you really want to tell someone this is a woman, so no one misunderstands this. Is this a woman, you know? Or so, but no. It's the opposite, that this is something that tells you something completely different of a person, not that this person has got ovaries. It's just like this person is not mentally stable or doesn't have everything together. So that's why I made this drawing. But then when they put it up in the subway, just like almost immediately, there was this huge debate, and people were forming themselves in Facebook groups and complaining very much about this art. And also they threw paint at it twice. I think they had to replace them. And
red paint?
No, it was black paint. I really like those pictures when they have paint thrown at them, because they are. It looks quite good actually with this black paint on them, but
it was the black of censorship.
Yes,
it was not
exactly.
the red of empathy or the blue
but
of...
it was also used like in a populist debate, because there is a populist right-wing party, like a conservative right-wing populist party in Sweden, that started to use these pictures as an example of how the culture is derailed, and how money is used the wrong way, and that if they were in power, this type of art should not get funding, and they should have instead, they made a meme with like an old painting of a boat, and they were like, this is the type of art that is going to be in the subway if we get power. And they also made, but so it became this big debate. But I also, I mean, like all the time when you have this type of debate, it's, there were a lot of people who just wrote me very nice things and told me very beautiful stories about how they had explained to their kids what is menstruation, because the kids were asking this in the subway station and so on. So it was both positive and negative reactions to this.
But I mean, I find it fascinating that this is a taboo that somehow cannot be broken, no matter how much you put it out there. And there is a long history of especially female artists, famously putting them, I don't know, their wet tampons in the Tate Gallery and things like that. And yet, I wonder if the reason why, like, there is no way to push through this, to break this taboo wall, because it is women the ones that keep the wall up, that keep the taboo going. Because when I think about this woman ice skating with all these cameras around and all these people looking, and and having this stain, I can imagine that even if she got all the gold medals in the Olympics that year, it would be the most embarrassing moment of her entire life. Yeah. And so, and I keep thinking about how I cannot think of a single woman I know that hasn't had, a moment like that, no? Because, we all have periods every month. And we all have found ourselves in an embarrassing situation where we stain something.
Yeah.
And you also talk about how, someone staining a couch with blood or dropping, like a glass of wine are very, very different things. Like, they are very different situations that, that basically are just staying on the couch, and how there is no way to break the inappropriate dirtiness of that blood. I was actually, I was talking the other day to someone that organizes ayahuasca, how would you say, like rituals, exactly. And then I don't know why I asked him a number of things, no? Like, do you have to eat this or that before you get, or can you eat meat before you get there, or can you have the period? And he was like, all through this questionnaire, he was like, no, yes, of course, we're so cool, we're so relaxed. And I was like, no period, lady.
Really?
He was like, no, of course not the period. And I was like, and why is that? Like, would you bleed to death or something? He's like, no, it's not that. It's just like, kind of not that, but nothing, no periods in my ritual. And so I went home and I was like researching this, and of course, in all the super ancient rituals, there is again this figure of the impurity of, you go to the circle to clear your impurities and to, push through some whatever traumatic past that you may have. But period is just not allowed unless it's run by a woman. When it's run by a woman, it just happens that period is actually one of the big, great pushers of the ayahuasca ritual.
Really?
Like, because you're way more sensitive and open to change and more emotional and more, willing to just, let go of whatever dirty secrets you carry from your past. But I thought it was very interesting, that, I cannot think of a more, or maybe there shouldn't be, like you can hardly find places where, conventional wisdom or conventional thinking is less, a thing than in an ayahuasca retreat. And yet, not even in the ayahuasca, Ibiza retreats, you're
we need to fight for more female ayahuasca, like priestesses, or like some. This is a very important question then, so
Absolutely.
that everyone, at whatever time of the month, can participate in this. Yeah.
We have a mission. Well, but going back to shame, which is, our topic of the day, we were talking before about how, well, you're working on a new project now.
Yeah.
Can we talk about it?
Yeah, sure. This book already came out in Sweden, my latest book.
Okay.
So, and also in France, if you read
So
French.
we were talking about how, there is a number of ways of feeling shame in the internet, and your new book is about, the social media and how it produces a particular kind of image. And we were talking about the Kardashians, no? How the social media has turned the Kardashians' image into a replicable kind of feature of a face that now you can find everywhere, because you can produce it, literally. Like, you can turn it into a production site and produce a Kardashian face for yourself. And how someone took a photo of one of the Kardashians and it was not properly produced, and that was the source of intense shame.
Yeah, like with the topic of shame, you can really talk about, because my book that came out now in Sweden, it's called Inside the Hall of Mirrors, and it's about like the life that we live on social media and the image we project. And there is this interesting theory that I read about fame or famous people, that is like because famous people have a lot of like problems, and a lot of the time they feel bad. I mean, Britney is a good example. I think it's worse the earlier age you became famous, the worse it is, I think, for people to kind of heal that, because you have this problem with being like a public figure, and there is a split between the you that you are projecting and showing everyone, and then there is another self that is like not being on display, because like when you are performing towards an audience, you have to always project an image of yourself. And like what this sociologist is suggesting is that with social media, we all become more and more like celebrities. We get the same kind of problems that celebrities has, because like if you have an Instagram account, for example, even if you only have like the following of a few friends, and or if you have like a little Twitter account that has a little following, like few hundred people, but like there's like in this new structure there are so many more celebrities, like micro celebrities, and before like we had 2 or 3 celebrities in like, for example, in Sweden there were like 10 or 15 celebrities like 30 years ago, but now I mean there are like a myriad of celebrities that have their own little following. And even if you're not a celebrity at all, you still are a bit like a celebrity, because you show an image of yourself, and this image can show some things, but it cannot show the whole you or everything about you. And for example, in social media, I mean, you can show, you often show, of course, like I had this nice trip with my friends, I was on vacation, that's a very good thing to Instagram, or I ate something nice, or I have this nice clothes on or something, and all of but you don't, of course, show I feel very bad. I'm ugly. And even if because there is this trend towards being more authentic on social media, but even this authenticity is kind of a staged, consumable performance, because, like, everything about. It all takes place on like a giant, like a platform that is owned by these giant tech companies, and it's like a marketplace, and all the content that is there is in order to sell advertising and just have people keep scrolling, So, so there is a lot of things that are like that has to be in hiding. And that causes like this feeling of split, where the true self or the authentic self, even if like the avatar that you have online gets a lot of love and likes and so on, there is another self that is like hovering in the shadows and feeling more and more like no one is giving me love or attention, or and this sociologist explains the reason for famous people that they have breakdowns. He says like it's a desperate attempt for this like authentic self to like break through and show I'm here, I want to kill this avatar, I want to destroy the life of this avatar. For example, when Britney, who used to be like a virgin, supposedly in the beginning of her career, she was marketed as a virgin. She was like had this absolutely perfect body and tan and everything and all these sexy clothes. And then with her just from nothing, she just like shaved off her hair and threw things at the paparazzis, and like because there was someone else in there that was not allowed to be exposed, And I think that's like, that can be the same feeling, even if you only have like an Instagram account or a Facebook account, that you tell certain things that make you look a certain way, but then you have all these like very dark needs and desires and fears and shortcomings and problematic feelings that don't have like any way to yeah, and as more and more of our social relationships are in this web, then it's like it's more and more difficult with this personality split, because if you have a true friendship, then you can, I think, be mirrored like in all of your different, the closer or more real the relationship is, like the more you can get accepted for all of your different shortcomings and so on. But this way of having social relationships is very much about displaying something that others can judge and say yes or no. You can only have these two feelings: I like it or I don't like it. So you can either just be liked or disliked. Yeah.
Left or right.
Yeah,
no?
yeah, exactly.
Yay or pass.
And nothing more complicated than that.
Which is again like the pure image of narcissism, no? Which is like the shell of a person projecting all its, I don't know, ambitions and wishes and perfections while suffocating their inner real person inside, their inner Britney, I guess, underneath it all. I wonder how Leonardo DiCaprio's would break out of his perfect Leonardo, the man of the infinite swimsuit models, would break out of his shell. This is interesting also in terms of how the algorithm helps you or pushes you to become one kind of shell. Like, because even before, if you were narcissistic, there was a number of ways where you could be perfect and beautiful and successful and whatever. But now, especially when you look at what happens in the digital platforms, because of Airbnb and Pinterest, there is only a couple of ways that you can have a really great house. And after Instagram, there is only a couple of ways that you can be beautiful and that you can be having fun, and that there is a few places where you can go and do yoga, or there is a few ways that coffee can present itself, like the way of showing yourself as a successful human being without needs, like love or menstruation or whatever disgusting things that we are in the inside. There's only a few ones, and now they are like becoming a phase. I think we were talking about it before, that it's a phase that is very particular because it's not really human. Like, it's a face that has a very prominent, bulging forefront and very high cheekbones and very thin chin, no? Because, it's like the gradation approach, but all the new models these days, they all look like the same face. And I am pretty sure this has to do with an algorithm that finds this face like particularly, I don't know, attractive, precisely because of its unhumanness. And I look at this and I find that there is an interesting process going on inside this world where, while we are looking at all these things, Rumi, for instance, the mystic Sufi poet, has become the most famous poet in the internet, which is all about mystic love and sacred being and being one with nature and, and the connection with, I don't know, all that is sacred, and rituals. You talk a lot about how the rituals that we have discarded as maybe a bit too cute or corny are actually, our anchor into the community and the things that actually produce our social connections and all that. So I wonder if you think that this is changing. if there is a way in which we are so saturated of this one way of being perfect, this one way of being attractive, this one way of being cool, of having relationships, that this one kind of person that you can date, like, you know, this sort of monolithic, kind of fascistic approach to how to live well. If we are somehow getting over it.
I think it's interesting, like if you think about beauty ideals, because I was reading this old feminist classic book. I was rereading it. It's from the beginning of the 90s by Naomi Wolf, The Beauty Myth. And she writes there about the the effect that the photograph has got on the idea on beauty, because she is picturing like what it was like to be a woman before there were photographs. So like then people were not even seeing images. I mean, maybe you saw images when you went into church and there was some church painting of hell or something like that, or the Madonna maybe. But other than that,
the Madonna crying or bleeding, but through the head, not through anywhere else. Yeah.
And but so like it might have been, I think that, so like this is my fantasy about this, but like if you picture a village, there surely must have been like one woman in every village, or a few women that were considered like the most beautiful women in this village. But these women, I think, could have looked very differently, like one very short, one very long, one with her nose up, one with her nose down, one with, you know, like different features. And the features that were looked up like they were attractive, they can be things, a lot of things that cannot be captured in a photograph. Like this one is the most beautiful here because she has got like a beautiful laugh, or she moves, she's got a very graceful way to walk, or like a mysterious sexual aura that is unexplainable and not possible to photograph or describe in words, or, you know, or it could be like a number of different things that could make like one person maybe then attractive. But then when photographs starts to appear, and from the beginning there were like photographs, maybe nude photographs of prostitutes, like the first photographs that started to circulate, and then family portraits and so on. And then as the amount of photographs starts to grow, until then the idea of like what is someone who is beautiful is like narrowing down. So it's very paradoxical in a way, because now I think we live in a time where historically, I mean, of course, like we are in peak watching images. Like we live in an empire of images, and we consume everything through images, and there have never been so many pictures of like beautiful women, for example. But paradoxically, we've never seen so many pictures of beautiful women, but all of these women start to look like exactly the same woman.
Leonardo's girlfriend.
Yeah, or some kind of Kardashian hybrid or something like that. But it's not only because, I mean, one part of it is the algorithm and the amount of photos, but it's kind of weird in a way, like that it's becoming like the idea of what is beauty is becoming more and more narrow, just because we have so many photographs. So
because
weird.
It comes out of pattern recognition, no?
Yeah.
And also, like these platforms, for the first time, gives us the ability of quantifying in exacting terms what constitutes a beautiful face. No, it's like 35%, I don't know, pointy nose, and then, you know, I don't know, 32% green eyes,
Yeah.
et cetera. So all these qualities
Or
that
just
you were
weight. I
mentioning.
mean, the weight of a person is something that couldn't be measured until like modernity entered, and like just having like different numbers of like how many kilos, like what is the height, what is the like all, you know, like all of this, like it's possible to quantify in a way where like the whole experience of beauty, which is actually something mystical and unexplainable and uncontrollable,
Exactly, like love.
yeah, like love, exactly. It's very similar to love. It's one of the muses, like, or the grasses, I don't know, it's like love, beauty, like, yeah, it's like this very ancient human form, like the beautiful parts of life. But it's yeah, but trying to quantify that, or like it's the completely wrong approach to it, because it's not possible to quantify. It's not possible to like put in numbers, or you have to experience it and like open up to it, and that means losing control over it, because like I think beauty only appears in the uncontrolled, you know, and you have to like, and beauty transforms you. So in order to like experience beauty, you have to open up to the possibility of, you know, yourself being ruined or transformed.
Yes, and also it has to be unique, which is again how love turns the loved one into a unique person, precisely out of the things that make him or her different, which is normally, you know, something that is not popularly attractive or beautiful, which is something we don't want to risk right now, because you don't want to be the one that dates the guy with the glasses, no? or the fat girl, or the you know, something like that, which is being too coward. I guess it's easier to turn into the other thing. I can see that we have 3 minutes left, so I guess I'm going to ask you, how do we break the spell? How do you break the spell of wanting something that is not the only wantable thing, the only wantable face or body or, you know, famous person? What's the, you know, what have you learned from all your research that we can turn to?
I don't know. I just, for me, it just helps to analyze and try to understand things, and just like read about it. And after that, I think that just like the knowledge about something kind of helps a little bit. But I ask the same question as you know, it's like, and I think also it's difficult as an individual, you know, for example, like this, the things that you are writing about social media and so on, like, it's very hard to just log out and be the only person that doesn't who isn't like in this web. Then, you know, it's like, to be like the so the individual solution, I think is very difficult, or to have like an individual approach to it. I don't know, maybe it's unsolvable. No.
Also, we're constantly looking at even the people we know. We're looking at them in Instagram or in TikTok or, you know, through the screen, and it's not the same thing as looking at them in real life, and smelling them and touching them, and, you know, and that's where you smell and you touch and you look. That's when you end up liking the wrong person. That's, you know, how it always happens. And all your friends are like, really? Are you feeling okay? Is there anything you want to share? You know, but this is it, no? That's the thing. And also like this idea, I don't know, who was it? What's this British philosopher that was talking about how you should marry the wrong person, that you will always be with someone that is not perfect, because that person, even if someone is perfect for a second, that's like a fleeting thing, no? And how you just have to settle with the good enough, that we need to start thinking again that you don't want to find the one that matches 99% of your likes and dislikes and etc. That is your perfect match, and that has the perfect job and the perfect hair and the perfect dog and the perfect man. Like that we have to start thinking about settling with the just good enough, which is so kind of like, such an antagonistic thought for our
Yeah, I don't know if you have to
mind.
call it. I don't know if you have to call it good enough. I think that just like accepting all the parts of someone, and it helps to think about yourself. I think that someone has to be with me and with all the unperfect.
Oh, but we are perfect.
Yeah, no, no, but it's I think that, yeah.
That's the thing, no? When you start looking after the self in those ways, go to the gym a lot and eat only the right things and have the right job and only saying the right things and have the perfect Instagram, you expect someone that mirrors that. So maybe the first step is just stepping out of that projection of the self that maybe has nothing to do with yourself and just Britney yourself out. Well, I can see zeros in my screen, so I guess this is it. Thank you so much, Liv. Your books are amazing. I have had so many phone calls from my girlfriends, oh my God, you're going to talk to Liv, I can't believe it. So I hope some of them are here today. Gracias a todos por venir. Siento que no haya preguntas. Hoy es lo que es. And again, un aplauso para Liv por sus maravillosos libros.